You're watching the India Today Group Cicero opinion poll. We focused so far on the Hindu castes of Uttar Pradesh and we've tracked how they are voting in the battle for 2014. I now want to focus on the Muslims and we'll start with the Ashraf Muslim vote now. This is the only community where the Congress is the predominant party. Their vote share coming down 5% from last time amongst the Ashraf Muslims. The SP more or less holding on to its vote share over here at 28%. The BJP from 7 to 5. So that essentially means that there are some Ashraf Muslims, not too many, who are choosing to vote for Narendra Modi and the BJP this time. Let's now come to the Pasmanda Muslims, the predominant Muslim community in Uttar Pradesh. Over here, we are seeing very interestingly that the Samajwadi Party is the predominant party. They've in fact consolidated their hold over the Pasmanda Muslims despite Muzaffarnagar, despite the riots, from 38 to 40. Is it because the Muslims feel they have no option? If they want to take on Modi, that's where they have to go. We're also seeing the Congress lose 3% of its vote share here. We are seeing the BSP lose 8% of its vote share amongst the Pasmanda Muslims. It's interesting though that the BJP is projected to pick up 19% of the Pasmanda Muslim vote, which is 8% more than earlier. Now I want to go across first to Dhananjay Joshi on this, because as we traveled, we didn't see any Muslim who said they wanted to vote for Narendra Modi. They in fact were paranoid. They feared the worst. They thought that this would be a apocalypse for them. Where are you picking up these numbers from, Dhananjay?
Well, that's a surprising trend. Every election we see that a small proportion of Muslims do vote for the BJP. But this time round, these numbers going up, the only explanation one can get is that this is a purely aspirational vote, or this is a kind of a bet. If you look at it, Pasmanda Muslims, Mayawati loses the maximum. And the votes in a way straight away go in the BJP's kitty. Now, these figures come after a lot of rigor, after a very serious fieldwork and a very representative sample. So I
You're
would
saying
go
that's
with
what the
these
numbers
figures.
say.
Yeah,
but
that's what the numbers say.
Anecdotally, Dr. Lahiri, this is not what we found. We found a Hindu polarization or consolidation in favor of Modi, but we're also seeing Dhananjay suggest over here that there are some Muslims who are willing to consider voting Modi.
Rahul, I was not with you when you went to that Jalebi Wala. I thought you did talk to two Muslim brothers.
Yes, that's true.
And one of them said that they will support BJP,
That's
and
true.
they came almost to a fist fight.
Yes.
So to say that you haven't come across any Muslim who
That
is
was in
saying,
Ghaziabad. I'm saying more into Western Uttar
Western,
Pradesh.
yeah.
There was a massive polarization amongst the Muslims against the BJP. But what Dhananjay is suggesting is there are some Muslims who are prepared to vote for the
And
BJP.
that's
but-
the strength of surveys, Rahul. Surveys go
absolutely.
inside houses, use a ballot box. It's all
No,
in
as
the
Ashok
secret
Lahiri
ballot.
says, it's better than the Marco Polo form of journalism where you just end up at a street corner and think that you've cracked this.
and you have to take, your panelists seriously. Here is the Venerable Shiv Vishwanathan, who is talking about aspirational class. So even among the Muslims, some Muslims may be willing to try it out. What surprises me, doesn't surprise me, what confirms my beliefs is that we are finding two groups have gained. One is BJP, the other is Samajwadi Party. You will say Samajwadi Party is getting 1 or 2%
No, but it's
more.
not losing.
It's not
You would have
losing.
thought that after Muzaffarnagar, the Samajwadi Party would lose because
Right.
people would be frustrated with the way the riots were allowed to fester. But people instead feel that the Samajwadi Party at least protected them, unlike the BJP which was targeting them.
So the numbers that I take away from this is that 10 to 20% of the Muslims may actually vote for BJP.
That's very interesting. I want to go across first to Sharad Pradhan. On the Muslim voters that we're seeing so far, not in too many numbers, but more than earlier, Muslim voters suggesting that they're prepared to consider voting for the BJP. Is that the sense you picked up as well, sir, as you traveled across Uttar Pradesh with us?
No, Rahul. And as a matter of fact, I had pointed this out to Dr. Lahiri that I'm rather surprised that
Yes,
the kind of vote
I am
you are showing, Muslim vote going in favor of BJP or Modi, as we say, is unbelievable. But there was always a small section of Muslims voting for the BJP in certain pockets of Uttar Pradesh. For instance, Lucknow, the Shia Muslims used to vote in a big way. That was because of Vajpayee. But now across the state, and that too in the western part of Uttar Pradesh, where Muslims have suffered a lot on account of the rioting, I see no reason why, even on account of aspiration, a small section of Muslim going far from belief. I can imagine 2 or 3%, nothing beyond that. But one thing is for sure, that the vote in large parts of Uttar Pradesh is divided vertically between pro-Modi and anti-Modi. And what we saw, Rahul, as you were also there, Dr. Larry was also there, that the vote in favor of Modi is completely united, whereas the anti-Modi vote is sharply divided.
Absolutely.
And that is what gives
That's an
Modi
important
a further
point.
edge.
I want to go across to Dilip Padgaonkar because there's gut, there's instinct, and then there are numbers. The numbers, Mr. Padgaonkar, seem to suggest that in small numbers, Muslims are prepared to consider voting for the BJP. Now, this might be against what I saw, what Dr. Lahiri saw, or what Sharad Pradhan saw, but that's what the numbers suggest. And we're also seeing the Muslim vote being split between the SP, the BSP and the Congress, thereby that also helping the BJP, Mr. Padgaonkar.
Well, first of all, I don't think that, the number of Muslims who are likely to vote for the BJP is significant in any serious way. In fact, the interesting thing that emerges from the figures you've just shown is that while identity politics has become or is becoming more and more fluid among certain Hindu communities who have traditionally stayed away from the BJP and are now moving towards the BJP, the reverse is happening as far as the identity politics of Muslims is concerned. I think there is a far greater consolidation of identity politics among Muslims, and that has been shown again and again because various clerics and so on have been going out of their way to defeat what they call communal forces, which of course is a synonym for the BJP.
No.
So I see this trend happening. Perhaps it's going to happen elsewhere in the country, but certainly your figures show that identity politics remains as firm and as consolidated among Muslims as it ever was.
And that's what the Samajwadi Party has been trying to tap into, Gaurav Bhatia. The reason that you've been building a spectre of fear, and very clearly that's been smart political strategy, is because despite the fiasco of Muzaffarnagar, Muslims, probably because they believe that the SP is best suited to take on the BJP, are actually voting for the Samajwadi Party across Muslim castes in greater numbers than earlier. That's the policy of fear. That's the politics of hatred which you've been playing, which seems to be reaping some electoral dividends. Mr. Bhatia.
Rahul, first of all, I disagree with you completely that it is the Samajwadi Party which is spreading hatred and is doing communal politics. In fact, it is a chain reaction of what the BJP has been spreading in the state of UP. And they have been communalizing the elections. We've been talking about upliftment for minorities. But a few very important observations I would like to make on the basis of the data that has been provided. If you see, Congress is losing its vote share amongst the minorities, even in the Ashraf community as well as the Pasmanda community. And the only beneficiary is the Samajwadi Party. However, I feel that these numbers, when it comes to BJP, that they are getting around 12% of Ashraf vote bank and around 19% of Pasmanda vote, is completely erroneous and is far away from ground reality. The BJP would not even get 3% vote share of the minority community. And please also remember that in 2009, Congress was in a far better situation when they were coming for the elections. In 2014, they are completely decimated. They don't remain as a viable options for the minority, and therefore the Samajwadi Party is confident that not just the Muslims but the other minorities also who are wanting their share of identity would go with the Samajwadi Party in the state of UP.
I want to go across to Subhendra Baduria of the BSP. Mr. Baduria, we're seeing...
if I can just make one more point.
Yes.
That, there is no caste for a student and for the first time voters, the youth especially. The Samajwadi Party has done a lot for the youth, for the college going students, and we are sure that our schemes that have been implemented so well, these voters would also turn towards the Samajwadi Party.
The question is, are you trying the wrong narrative? You've held out doles for the youth. The youth are seeking jobs. They've got heightened aspirations. They're voting for the man they believe can fulfill those aspirations. Dr. Baduria, I want you to look at these figures. These are figures for Jatavs, your primary caste. Just one second, Gaurav, I'm coming back to you. 45% still indicating they will vote for Mayawati much more than anyone else. but there's a 15% swing in favor of the BJP and in favor of Narendra Modi. And across castes, across even Muslim voters, we are seeing votes slip away. Is it possible that there is a disconnect between the SP and the BSP, which stand for identity politics, and the BJP, which is trying to push development politics, and that development politics, is it having greater resonance on the ground, Dr. Baduria?
You see, let me say one thing, that I'm really shocked and surprised that in a state where over 100 communal riots took place, and Muzaffarnagar being the biggest ever in the post-independent India, where over 100,000 people have been rendered homeless, you mean to tell me that the Pasmanda Muslims who have suffered the most in Uttar Pradesh, and the BSP is not getting Pasmanda Muslims to vote for it, is something very, very erroneous. And I can tell you, I'll just give you 4 parliamentary constituencies. One is Agra, and the other is, so that you can correct your facts, one is Agra and the other is Fatehpur Sikri. The other is Aligarh and the other is Ghaziabad. Please go and cross-check whether the Brahmins in Agra as well as in Fatehpur Sikri are not voting for the BSP, and the Thakurs are not voting for in Farrukhabad and as well as in Aligarh. So this entire exercise, that is why I say, will fall flat on its face.
Once again, you've got your own opinion poll, but which has nothing to do with the figures that Cicero is putting out, but you're entitled to your opinion, which is why we have you on this poll. That is
my opinion poll, or the people who are with Bahan Mayawatiji's opinion poll have proved you wrong time and again.
Okay, I want to come across now to some of the other indices that we're looking at. You know, we're looking at age, we're looking at gender, we're looking at social status. So let's just take voters from an age-wise perspective. This is the young voter, the under 25 voter of Uttar Pradesh, and look, very interestingly, 17% more young voters say they will vote for Narendra Modi and the BJP. 36%. The BSP losing here, the Congress losing here, 36% saying they will vote for the BJP. Let's now come to the next age category, which is between 26 to 55, the middle-aged voter. Once again, 16% more than last time saying they will vote for the BJP. The Congress losing, the Samajwadi Party holding on in the middle-age bracket. Let's now come to the older voter amongst those above 56. Once again, almost a similar trend, 32% saying they'll vote for the BJP, 16% more than last time. After having looked at age, let's look at gender. Let's try and dissect these numbers from a female-male perspective. Amongst the women, the Congress is losing out, the BSP is losing out, the Samajwadi Party more or less holding on to what they got the last time. The biggest gainer once more, the BJP, which is picking up 14% more women votes in this election than the last time. Let's take a look at the male voters from the Cicero India Today group survey. 17% more than last time saying they'll vote for BJP and for Narendra Modi. Once again, and this is a trend reflected across numbers, no matter how you dissect the numbers, the SP holding on to what they had last time. It's the Congress and the BSP, according to this poll, that are losing out. I now want to take a look at some of the vote share percentages for Uttar Pradesh. Let's take a look at the overall vote share percentages for Uttar Pradesh. This is what Cicero is projecting, because if you aggregate all of what we've seen so far, this is the end picture we end up with. BJP gaining 17%. Remember, they had 18% vote share last time, gaining 17% extra votes. The Congress from 22 coming down to 17. The BSP losing out the most from 27 to 18. The SP holding on to what they had last time. So each of those subcategories add up and give us this big picture. I'll put out the seat share figures in just a moment. But before that, to Dr. Lahiri, your sense of what we're seeing. And what we're seeing is very simple. Samajwadi Party holding on to where they were, the BSP being the biggest loser, the Congress losing too, not as much as the BSP, all of it consolidating in favor of Narendra Modi. Dr. Lahiri, your sense of this?
Rahul, the 17% swing takes BJP to 35%. Mind you, still they're not at their best performance.
Which was?
1998.
No, what was the percentage?
36.5
But they're very
or
close.
36.6.
They're very close to that.
They are. but still, they have a long way to go. That 1.5% is not easy.
No, but
was
I
just
have a
thinking
question
that-
for you, sir.
Yeah.
In the last few days, what we've seen Amit Shah do, is that an attempt to try and cross the last mile? That development can take you to 35%, if you want to go from 35 to 38, which can then mean that the seat share figures could jump, and we'll come to that later. Is that why the BJP is now playing this last-minute game? Dr. Lahiri.
You've asked a very difficult question. This identity politics that we talk about, when you make a statement which is against a particular community, it's not necessary that only that community gets aggrieved. It may be the other communities also. There are thinking people somewhere who may take exception to that statement. So how these statements will
Or your
consolidate
calculation
votes?
can be that the liberal Hindu voter is in our pocket. Can we try and consolidate those who still haven't been won over by playing the Hindutva card? I want to ask that question to Siddharth Singh. Is that why Amit Shah, despite promising that he will not polarize the election, that this will be fought on development, is suddenly talking about badla, about revenge, because you want this 35 to move to 38, and if that were to happen in a first past the post multi-cornered contest, you know whatever seat shares will be shown by Cicero in a moment can jump up significantly. Is that the devious game the BJP is trying to play? Siddharth Singh.
Well, certainly not, Rahul. Once you know that what the election is all about, once you know you are getting you're getting all the votes from various sections of society in UP because of the development, because of the aspiration, nobody can change the rule of the game. Nobody would like to shift, and certainly not by any stretch of imagination. Amit Shah ji tried to polarize the election, and that we are strongly of that belief. Now, just to make a small point, I think Rahul, everybody sitting there are missing something on UP. Since 2007, Rahul, the aspirational value or good governance, I would say, had been the voters' choice. We saw SP going in 2007 and with a full majority BSP coming. Similar thing happened in 2012. There was a young boy who comes as the chief minister. He takes the right call during the course of the election by saying DP Yadav will not get. There was a shift of the UP voters towards him, not for his father but for him, saying that this is a young boy who will do some good governance, things will change. Now, after 2 years, since he hasn't been able to perform, there is again a shift of the voters coming towards
You are saying that the election is entirely on development lines, but we've also seen highly communal figures. We've seen people like Mr. Balyan representing the BJP. They've been saying, and I have now seen this myself, Siddharth Singh, regardless of what you say, I have seen myself on the ground, candidates come out and make communal statements. No, the figures mostly favor you, but let me put my theory and let me put my question to Dilip Patgaonkar.
Just let me make a small comment. Let me make a small comment. There is a Muslim voters in UP. For last 10 years, a lot of places you will see that the Muslim boys and girls have started going for, they are enrolling themselves in school. There are hardly any dropouts. They are improving on, and with that you are seeing today they are becoming the first time voters. And I'm not surprised when you talk about the Pasnanda Muslims as well as Ashraf Muslim, they have started to think about BJP and Narendra Modi.
Okay, I want to put this question to Mr. Patgaonkar. The last 1 week has seen communal comments from both sides. It's not just the BJP that is to blame, the Samajwadi Party is to blame equally, if not more. Are we seeing in the last phase an attempt being made by both these parties to try and polarize this election on communal lines so that they can gain, they can benefit? Is that the game that Amit Shah and others are playing, Mr. Patgaonkar?
Well, this attempt, of course, has been made, and the attempt, it appears to me, is proving to be counterproductive. Because if more communal statements come out from the likes of Amit Shah, this might consolidate the core Hindu vote in favor of the BJP, but a lot of liberal Hindus who have been veering towards the BJP might begin to raise questions. Similarly, Muslims who engage in communal hate speech again might consolidate the core Muslim vote, but a lot of people, Hindus who call themselves secular, might say that this is not a cup of tea and might again go towards the BJP. So, it's a complex dialectical process that seems to be going on. But to answer your question, if the BJP has to go from 35% to 38%, the last thing they ought to be doing is to have the Amit Shah kind of hate speech being repeated.
That's a very interesting point that you're making. I want to put out now the seat share figures. This is what everyone's been waiting for. This is what Dhananjay Joshi's neck depends really on. The seat share figures for Uttar Pradesh as they stand now. Things of course could change, especially if what we've seen in the last 7 days pans out further, where we see more communal comments being made. But as of now, this is what things look like to Dhananjay and his team at Cicero. That's been working very closely with Dr. Ashok Lahiri. The BJP likely to pick up 46 seats, give or take 4. So the range is being projected to go from 42 to 50. The Congress between 6 and 10, including the RLD. So Ajit Singh's numbers are in here, as also the BSP from 9 to 13, an average of about 11. The Samajwadi Party coming in as the number 2 party between 15 and 21. That's the broad range that's being projected, and I want Dhananjay first to explain why, because some polls are saying it could be more than 50. Earlier the figures were in the 30s. Why is it that you've come up with this projection of between 42 and 50? Dhananjay Joshi.
Well,
just hold the mic.
Yeah. Well, Rahul, when we go and project seats, it's based on our vote projections. And what we do is we look at individual seats, but also look at regional swings. So Uttar Pradesh is not only one state. Uttar Pradesh is a state which has many different regions. So if you look at Doab, the BJP does not do so well. But in northeastern Uttar Pradesh and western Uttar Pradesh, very, very well. So total of each and every region gets us to 42 to 50. For BJP, and this is from the lowest to the highest range, as you said, 46, give and take 4.
No, but what I understand, Dr. Lahiri, is that in most regions, the BJP is doing equally well. So this is not a patchy, scratchy, region-based performance which gives them these seats. They've been able to get here by performing well in all the regions of Uttar Pradesh. The competition differs. In some they're competing with the Samajwadi Party, in others they're competing with the BSP, but it's the BJP which is way ahead in each of the regions of Uttar Pradesh.
They are, but I think Dhananjay has got a point when he says that, for example, in Rohilkhand, his opinion poll shows that the BJP is getting 37%, whereas in the Northeast, and also I think in Northeast they're getting only 30%. So there is a difference in the popularity of the BJP.
No, but the BJP is number 1 virtually everywhere.
It's number 1 virtually everywhere other than Doab, where there's a slight edge.
Minor difference with the SP.
That's SP's
just very, very minor. They're neck and neck. Even though, yes.
But you see, in the first past the post system, what happens is that it is the contest type which translates into seats. So the BJP might be getting only 30% votes in Northeast, but its seat distribution could be very different.
Okay, I want Sharad Pradhan to explain what could change between now and the 16th of May, because this is what Dhananjay's team has found before polling started in UP.
Right.
Now there is a multiple phases in which the voting will happen. Will this 46, can this 46 change more in favor of BJP and Modi? Why could that happen? Or could it come down, and if so, why? What could change between now and the 16th of May, Mr. Pradhan?
Well, Rahul, I think what Mr. Dilip Padgaonkar pointed out, if statements like the one made by Amit Shah are repeated, then it could damage the BJP, because as Mr. Padgaonkar rightly pointed out, and which I've been saying for a long time on your channel too, that there is the surge that Modi is getting is because of that the non-traditional voter of the BJP. A lot of the Modi supporters have come forward simply because Modi has not been taking the Hindutva line, and that is what is making all the difference.
Siddharthnath Singh, the BJP was hoping that they could beat the 57 mark that they had from 96, right? This figure indicates that 46 is the median that Cicero is projecting for the BJP. That is still 11 seats short of the best that you've done. What's your sense of the final seat share figures? There have been problems with seat allocation. The BJP leaders themselves are telling us that there are at least 5 or 6 seats where they feel that the wrong candidates have been given seats. Do you think all of that also could be damaging the BJP's prospects in the last mile?
Well, Rahul, on the seats distribution, it's always there. Some are unhappy, but mostly the seats went to the right people. and at the end of the day, the workers and the voters have their choice has been Modi ji. So I don't think by the time the voting happens, it will make much of a difference. But once we talk about the last mile, I think the momentum which has been there for the BJP in Uttar Pradesh will push us to the figures which we have been thinking, which is plus 55. And I don't think it can be stopped as long the workers on the ground are there and the voters' mind is there for a development and aspirational politics.
Okay, you're hoping
India,
for the winners bandwagon
55.
effect to kick in, Mr. Patgaonkar. The BJP would hope that as phase after phase word goes out that it's the BJP that's doing well, more and more people will want to be on the winning side. Is that the way you see things move from here on, or do you think because of the comments being made, because things are being polarized on the ground, which is not seen sitting here in the studio, you need to be out there to be able to understand that things could actually turn against the BJP in the last mile? Mr. Patgaonkar, I want your sense.
Things, of course, could polarize if, as I said, there is a drift again towards hard Hindutva politics in the speeches of BJP leaders. But there is perhaps another element about which we need to know a little more, which is that there are substantial sections of people, BJP people, who are pretty much unhappy, not just with the choice of candidates, but with the fact that a lot of senior leaders have been pushed out from their constituencies, sent elsewhere and so on. So I don't know to what extent there is the danger of some kind of an internal sabotage that might also adversely affect the prospects of the BJP.
But the reality about the BJP in Uttar Pradesh and across India is that the only currency that matters is the currency of Narendra Modi. Now, several would argue that people like Murli Manohar Joshi, Lalji Tandon are all currencies of the past. The winning card is Modi. That's the card they're banking on. Whether that card can take them past the hump or not, we will know soon enough. These were the results of the political stock exchange Cicero India Today Group Opinion Poll for Uttar Pradesh.